In today's show, the Trailblazers wrap up the season and secure the 8th seed in the West. Bring on the Phoenix Suns. Welcome to Locked On Blazers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Trailblazers, your daily Portland Trailblazers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up, world? It's your past first point guard and Trailblazers reporter, Mike Richmond. You're listening to another episode of Locked On Blazers. We're talking about the Blazers claiming the 8th seed. A matchup with the Phoenix Suns. They'll face the Suns in Phoenix on Tuesday. We'll talk all about that matchup and what these teams have done against each other this season. An injury update on Jeremy Grant and recapping the game against the Kings that secured the Blazers a 42-win season and the 8th seed in the Western Conference. Let's start there with this game. The Blazers had a very simple task ahead of them on Sunday evening when they were set to face the Sacramento Kings in Game 82. Pretty straightforward. You win the game against a not very good Kings team that's super duper injured and has 9 healthy bodies. You're the 8th seed. That's it. If you lose, you need some help and blah 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 blah. But this was a straightforward and easy task and an easy path. Win and you're in. You're 8th. And you move on to the 7-8 game, and you get to face the Phoenix Suns on Tuesday, and a win, and you're in the playoffs, a loss, and you get another crack at it. And a way to culminate a season that in many ways was a surprise. I think locally, most people thought the Blazers were somewhere between like a 37 and 43 win team. That seems to be the most prognosticators locally. I know that maybe the national betting lines had the Blazers a little bit lower, but I think folks in sort of the orbit of Portland thought this was somewhere in this range, and they finished right there in this range. I personally thought they were about a 39 win team, so you can say they exceeded my expectations, but I would say every prediction I make has a plus or minus 3, right? They're right in the range where I thought they would be. So they got to just beat the Kings, and they come out and do it. This was not a particularly notable performance. They win 122-110. Here's your fastest recap in the West. Game's tied at 33 after 1. Deni Avdija, who has not been making threes for a stretch, hits 3 threes in the first quarter, has 13 points after 1, and the Blazers are tied with the Kings, and they blow the game open in the second quarter. Blazers rip off 44 points in the second quarter, 18 of 29 from the floor. In the first half, they had 11 of 25 threes. It's like, hey, thanks for playing. Daquan Plowden, thanks for playing. Maxine Renault, thanks for playing. Devin Carter, thanks. Nick Clifford, thanks. Young players on the Kings roster, end of the Kings bench. Cool. This one's over, right? The Blazers are up 77-57 at the break. They had 11 threes in the first half. Deni Avdija got 17 points and 7 assists at halftime. Doing it in a different way than he did against the Clippers, but really carrying this team early. Looks like he's on pace for another monster night. And the Kings come out of halftime and just make it vaguely a game. Basically, in the end, refuse to go away, but make it vaguely a game. The Kings, over the first 5.5 minutes, 5 minutes and 17 seconds, if you want to get into the box score, they rip off a 17-4 run. And all of a sudden, a 20-point lead is down to a 7-point game when Maxine Renault dunks home a rebound off a Devin Carter floater. He dunks in a putback. Blazers take a timeout. It's okay, 7-point game. Darn it. And the Blazers just... their offense just dried up in the third quarter. A lot of it had been Deni kind of carrying them and making shots and setting guys up, and that just didn't keep happening. They're also scoring a little bit in transition in that first half too, and kind of just living in the paint, driving. Particularly, they had 2 monster dunks. Don McClingan in the first half had a monster dunk. Timani Kamara in the first half had a monster dunk, and it's just not coming as easy in the third quarter, after halftime. But Vit Krejci, who was active in this game, makes his debut, returning for the first time after an extended stretch, 13 games away. He finally gets back and plays. It checks in with about 3 minutes left in the third quarter. He would play 5 minutes in this game and looked like a dude who hadn't played basketball in a month. A little over that. But the Blazers still up, despite the Kings cutting it to 7 on 2 occasions in the third quarter. They're still up 12 after 3. And they just kind of hang on from there. Just kind of a stiff Army style fourth quarter. Kings cut it to 9 with about 8 minutes left. They cut it to 9 with about 6.5 minutes left, but never got closer than that in the fourth quarter. Just a stiff arm, comfortable win. I will say there was a little bit of restlessness in the crowd. There was some boos and sort of just like general kind of fan restlessness in the crowd with the Blazers, like not blowing out the Kings, because it looked like early they're going to just dominate and blow out this team. But I don't think you need style points. Instead, they comfortably get to a win that was never in jeopardy. It was maybe not like a super duper easy route, but it was never in jeopardy. You still got a little bit of like real deal garbage time in this one. It wasn't over, but by the 2-minute mark, the game was like not going to be competitive. This was a single digit game with 6.5 minutes left. Blazers win 122-110. That's your fastest recap in the West. Their 42nd win. What a game. What a season. I mentioned in yesterday's program that the way the Blazers season is going to work is that they're not going to have a moment to celebrate, right? They beat the Clippers on Friday to kind of secure their easy path to 8th. They can't celebrate that because they got to play the Kings. They beat the Kings on Sunday to secure this 42-win season. A 5-game improvement from last year. They have an all-star in Deni Avdija. They've just been playing much better, and thanks maybe in part to the schedule to be totally clear. But they've played their best basketball over the last month, and they beat the Kings to get this victory in their final game of the regular season, and it's fan appreciation night. But the Blazers don't really get to celebrate, because they got to go to Phoenix, right? Like Monday is a travel day. They'll head to Phoenix to face the Suns. And even if they beat the Suns, they won't really get to celebrate. They'll have a few days off, so maybe they will get to I guess they could enjoy a few adult beverages or whatever, but you're not really going to go nuts, right? You're not going to say, we did it, we're the 7th seed, right? No, you're going to move on and just shift your focus. They don't get a moment to celebrate. That's kind of how this thing works, but I do think this was in general, and we'll go more when the season finally does end, however it might. I'll go deeper into sort of my thoughts on this season, but I think there's a lot to like about the way they played this year. It wasn't perfect. I mean, shoot, the coach got arrested on the second night of the season, right? It was a little rocky at times. Dealt with a bunch of injuries, find themselves with a chance to finish 7th or 8th in the playoff bracket, or to miss it entirely if things go south next week, or this week, I should say. You are listening to Monday, April 13th program. I appreciate you listening. But 42 wins, a winning season, finishing where they did. Thiago Splitter talks about it after the game, that he has several times this season, he's taken a moment to kind of reflect and appreciate where he's been and think about, he described it as thinking about it outside of himself, right? This sort of bigger picture. And he said there's a lot of reasons to be appreciative, but the thing is they got to keep going. And that's kind of been the theme of this season, right? Is when you are in a place where the Blazers are, you don't ever get a moment to rest on your laurels and appreciate yourself and say, we have accomplished our goals, because as a team that is maybe in the lower half of the playoff bracket, your goals are to chase it, and then once you get there, your goals are to keep chasing it, right? It is not. There's something to be said for a team that just misses the playoffs, but is pretty good. We're you did it, congratulations. But the Blazers aren't there yet, right? They're not there yet. This week will decide it, and this week begins Tuesday in Phoenix. If there's anything to take away from this Kings game, I think it was that Deni Avdija made threes. He finished with 25 points and 10 assists. Made 5 of 9 from 3. I want to talk a little about Deni's shooting, because in some ways it is the sort of X factor in what takes him from being, a very good player to that true all-star, all-NBA, borderline all-NBA, 20 best players in the NBA type of player. I want to talk about that and a little bit of Jeremy Grant update, because there's some good, maybe potentially some good news on Jeremy Grant. We'll do that in the second segment. Join me there, won't you? First, though, I want to tell you that today's program is brought to you by Gametime. The NBA playoffs are here, or at least the postseason is here next week, with the playoffs beginning shortly thereafter. And if you want to get in the building, Do it with Gametime. It's the go-to app for scoring tickets fast without the hassle. Puts the advantage back where it belongs with you, the fan. Pull up the Gametime app. You're going to see the venue of where you want to go. Say you want to go to watch the Blazers game in Phoenix, or if they have future games back at the Moda Center, you pull the app up, and quickly the venue is right there. And then when you're scrolling around, it's all in upfront pricing, so there's no surprise fees at checkout. And if you've never been somewhere, say you are traveling down to Phoenix and you've never been to the arena before, said, what's it like at the Footprint Center? Well, you can click on a view from your seat and get a 360 view before you make any decisions on where to buy, the exact view you'll have when you're sitting in the seat. It takes the guesswork out of buying tickets, and you can do that always with a quick and intuitive and stress-free process with Gametime. You can download the Gametime app, create an account, use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. That's code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today, and remember, it's gametime.co, not gametime.com. All right. Thanks for making this show your first listen. If you really are living that everyday lifestyle, first and foremost, I appreciate you. And second of all, make it official. Go join the Locked On Everydayer Club. Get access to an ad-free version of this podcast as Locked On Blazers without any interruptions. And you can join our members-only Discord, which you can chat it up with me and your fellow Blazers fans. There's more info in the show notes, lockedonblazers.supercast.com. So I don't think this Kings game was particularly notable. I think this was just like a, hey, like I don't think the Blazers played super well. There's part of me that thinks like they really stepped up and delivered on Friday, and then they had this sort of the classic like crappy team letdown on Sunday. Now they didn't let it boil over, and they won pretty comfortably by double digits and led by double digits for most of the fourth quarter. And it wasn't like ever in doubt. There was never a moment where the Kings had the ball in the fourth quarter where you're like, if they score here, it's going to be a problem, right? Like the Blazers responded every time with some kind of something. I think, while this wasn't like, this wasn't some sort of like really special game by any means. I think this was a take care of business performance and a night you needed to take care of business. And while they rose to the occasion against against the Clippers, they maybe sort of dipped down to the occasion against the Kings, but they got a chance to rise up against Phoenix on Tuesday. And one of the things that I will be watching is Deni Avdija shooting the ball. Against the Clippers on Friday, Deni Avdija made 1 3, a huge one, to put the Blazers up 13 with like 3 minutes left to kind of ice the game. He had a top of the key 3 to ice the game. And after that game, he was asked, like, how did it feel to like make a 3? The like circumstances of this particular interview with Deni Avdija were unique because for whatever reason, there was like a lot of coming and going in the media room, and Deni Avdija was getting sort of like distracted and frustrated with people leaving out a certain door in the media room. If you've been inside this building, it's like the sort of far door by the restrooms. But like regardless, it's just like one of the doors in the media room. And Deni was he's kind of getting frustrated. So like I'd say like the specifics of the interview like need the context of that. But he got asked like, did it feel good to hit a 3? And he was a little bit. You could tell by the way he responded to that question to be like, yeah, I know I'm missing 3s. You don't need to tell me. And he said, players go through a quote unquote slump. And Deni admitted he was a little bit miffed at this sort of implication that like hitting that 3 was some sort of big moment. He said, I've hit 3s before. I think it was like a totally fair and normal question. And I don't think it was like an overarching, like, hey, you've been bricking a bunch of shots, big dog. But like, you've been bricking a bunch of shots, big dog. Since Deni got hurt in the middle of January, he got hurt on January 11th. He kind of pulled up lame against the Kings. Since then, he is shooting a cool 22.3% from 3 coming into Sunday's game against the Kings. That's 29 of 130 over the last 2 months. He has not made 3s. When Deni was humming in early January, when he was putting together, as I've said many times on this show, one of the best seasons in Trailblazers history, a lot of it was because not a lot of it, excuse me. Some of the magic of it was that he was shooting really well on particularly catch and shoot jumpers. But he was like shooting, a little bit below league average, but on enough volume to keep teams honest. And while, teams would maybe still dare him to shoot off the dribble, he's such a good downhill driver, and he was making enough 3s, and particularly catch and shoot 3s, so he can attack, like if he does get a catch and shoot opportunity and you close out, he can attack that closeout, and he's really good when he gets guys off balance and gets to get downhill, particularly to his strong hand. When he was doing that at a high level, he was like again, like a borderline all-NBA player. Like, I don't know that he would have made all-NBA. He might have if he had played that well for the whole season, right? He would have been right in the conversation. And particularly with all the injuries and guys who are like not available now, like, shoot, Deni might still get votes for it, right? I don't think he'll make an all-NBA team, but he might. I wouldn't be surprised. But at that time, it was like, even with Cade and Luka and the whole world healthy, it's like, yeah, Deni deserves to be in the conversation. He might legitimately be having one of the 15 best seasons in the league, and if and he deserves to be. He was in the discussion, right? I thought he was that good. And the reason that if you pay attention to like sort of the publicly available, hey, here's who I'm voting for the end of season awards, the reason that you're not seeing Deni's pop up as much is in part because he just has not shot well for now 2 straight months. And so when he was a little bit taken aback by the sort of line of questioning on Friday night, I thought it was fair, very fair and normal question. On Sunday, he did something he just hasn't done in a while. He hit 5 threes. 5 of 9 from deep. He hit 3 of 4 to begin the game, and it was like, that's right, face, take it. But Deni matched a season high with 5 made threes, and like he hasn't made 5 3-pointers since the calendar flipped to freaking December. Like the 3 times he did it were October 27th and then back-to-back games November 24th and 26th. Like that's a long time ago. Obviously he lives at the rim. Like his skill set is getting downhill and getting to the free throw line. It's not like I want Deni to shoot a cajillion threes, but he needs to shoot some to keep teams honest. And even during this cold stretch, he's taken 5 a game, which I think is a totally reasonable number. So to see him make those threes, I think that's, I don't think shooting like well one night against the Kings is like the sign of anything predictive, but I will say this: if Deni does shoot threes in that 34.5, 35, 36 range, that league average is a little, in the just under 37, shade over 36, like in that range, 36 and a half, we'll call it. If he does, flirt with 35.5% shooting with his downhill ability, with his passing ability, with his ability to draw fouls endlessly and his relentlessness, he's just so special. And I think like when he hits 5 threes against the Kings, I'm like, oh, that hasn't happened in a while. Like he hasn't done that, right? He's making like 1 a game. He's averaging, since he got hurt on January 11th, he's averaging 1.1 makes per game, right? So to hit 5, obviously he took more because he made more, right? The reason that he made a couple threes and then he kept shooting them, 4 in the first quarter, that opens up the world for Deni and for the Blazers. And while they didn't play particularly well against the Kings, that was a thing that I'm like, if the Blazers are going to get out of the play-in round and move forward, Deni being he doesn't really take mid-rangers too often, but occasionally he drives and does that little pivot back and takes a middle of the paint fade. So we'll call him, if he's a 3-level scorer, because we'll call that his 3rd level, he's mostly threes and rim. But like if he's a 3-level scorer, he's like, they're just way more dangerous. Another thing to track as the Blazers head into their play-in matchup with the Phoenix Suns is Jeremy Grant. Before the game, I asked Tiago Splitter about Jeremy Grant's availability. He says he's pretty close. He's back and doing stuff on the court. Like he's out on the court in his workouts. And then after the game, I think Tiago Splitter kind of maybe just a little bit got us a peek into some optimism in Blazerland. In a sort of unrelated question about appreciating the season and what they had accomplished and blah, 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 he said, we're going to, this is a verbatim quote I'm going to read you from Tiago Splitter. Again, your boy did some transcribing. Tiago said, we're going to have a chance to hopefully to have everybody and a whole and full roster to compete in the play-in and the playoffs. That sounds more optimistic about Jeremy Grant than when I specifically asked him before the game. The Blazers have not released a timeline, but importantly, they have not put out the dreaded PDF to say Jeremy Grant will be reevaluated in 4 to 6 weeks. I don't know that he'll play on Tuesday, and obviously we'll get an injury designation on Monday afternoon, probably Monday about 5 p.m. Pacific time, to get the actual update on Jeremy Grant, which I think will tell us more than this quote that perhaps I'm reading too much into. But the Blazers have an outside chance on Tuesday, when they go into Phoenix, to have a full roster, like a fully available roster. Obviously, sans Damian Lillard, but he's out for the year, so he was never going to be available in one of these games. Who do they play on Tuesday, you might ask? Well, I've said their names a bunch, but let's repeat it one more time. That's the Suns. the Phoenicians. The Phoenix Suns in Phoenix, Tuesday. Winner gets the 7th seed. Loser gets a home game and one more crack at it on Friday evening. The Blazers are going to, by virtue of beating the Kings, have 2 chances to make the playoffs. Win one of your next 2 games, and you're a playoff team. Lose them both, you're out. The opportunity is there, and that opportunity begins Tuesday in Phoenix. Let's talk about that in the third segment. Join me on the other side. Before we do that, though, I want to tell you that today's program is brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are upon us. Every possession matters. Every matchup is magnified. Every game can swing a series. And right now, FanDuel is giving new customers a great way to get in on the action during the NBA playoff season. Here's how it works and what you're going to like about it. You can bet just $5 and get $250 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. So find something you like, put $5 down, and then you get $250 in bonus bets to play around in the FanDuel app. And the app itself makes it easy to follow all of your NBA action. They got live player stats, live trends, matchups, and all of that info to make you and keep you the most informed bettor you can be, all living right there on the app, right in the box score as you click along. And during the playoffs, that extra insight can really matter. It can really matter all the time, but in the playoffs, maybe you want it to matter even more. So if that's what you're into, head over to FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel. Play your game. Today's show also brought to you by TurboTax. It's tax time. For a lot of us, the old way of doing taxes is, well, it's a lot. Trying to book an appointment that's not the most convenient, sitting in a waiting room with a stack of papers, emailing back and forth and wondering if they really get your situation. But this year, you're getting a major upgrade. Intuit TurboTax now has in-person locations nationwide. You can meet face-to-face with a real tax expert, and your documents get uploaded straight to your TurboTax app on the spot. And just like that, you're done. Your TurboTax expert works to get you every dollar you deserve while you get real-time notifications as you go about your day. It's the relief of walking in and meeting a real person and walking out and knowing your taxes are being handled right. Head to turbotax.com/local to find a store near you and book your appointment. Still a pass for his point guard. I'm still Mike Richmond. You're still listening to Locked On Blazers. The Blazers are going to be in Phoenix on Tuesday night to face the Phoenix Suns. They're 1-2 against Phoenix this year. I don't think any of these matchups are particularly predictive, but indeed they are factually 1-2. The first one happened back in November. That was November 27th, and the Suns won handily, 127-110. In that game, the Phoenix had basically all their full complement, their whole roster, sans Jalen Green, who was out with a hamstring injury, but the Blazers didn't have Jeremy Grant in that game, missed the game with an illness. They didn't have Drew Holiday because that was the beginning of his calf injury. That was the second game he had missed with a calf injury. He would miss 9 weeks. And the Suns just kind of handled them. They blew the game open in the second quarter and won 127-110. Shaedon Sharpe did have 29 points. Deni Avdija had a relatively quiet night, and the Blazers just missed shots. They shot bricks, and they couldn't hang with the Suns in the second half, who got a balanced scoring attack and kind of rolled. That was way back in November. Fast forward ahead to the second meeting in February, where the Blazers and Suns met without the 2 best players on the court available. No Deni Avdija in Portland, no Devin Booker, and the Suns won 130-125. Colin Gillespie, your boy, had a career-high 30 points in that game. Hooping, hit 8 3-pointers. Mark Williams, 24 and 12, this again, like a third quarter kind of flipped the game back after the Suns were trailing in the first half and trailing big in that first quarter, and kind of flipped the game on the other way for Phoenix to win late. Grayson Allen had 24 points in that game, shot 11 of 14. Like Colin Gillespie and Grayson Allen destroyed the Blazers in that game. And again, that was no Devin Booker, that was no Jalen Green. But I mean, if you give up 30 and 10 to Colin Gillespie, you probably deserve what happened to you. In that game, like I said, Blazers had no Deni, but they had lost. They were about to be in the midst of a 6-game losing streak as that one happened. Jeremy Grant led the Blazers with 23 in that one. Donovan Clingan had 14 and 15. Shaedon Sharpe had 19, but. That also was Vit Krejci's debut, but the Blazers were a mess in early February, right? It was like they were heading into the All-Star break, and and Deni was hurt, and they still didn't have Drew Holiday back, and it was like this was an injured and beat up team, right? these teams meet again, and this time at the end of February, on the 22nd, the Phoenix Suns are the one that's like comically beat up. No Dylan Brooks, no Devin Booker, no Mark Williams. They are missing their dudes. No Grayson Allen in that game. Like they're missing 4 of their 6 best players. Donovan Clingan dominated 23-13. The Suns are just small. Like it's like the Common Malawatch has been playing more maybe the second half of the season, but they play a lot of Oso Ighodaro. And if Clingan can stay in the game on the other end, they're small. Suns scored just 77 points in that game and shot 37% from the field. Just a gross game. But the Blazers didn't play well in that game. They had 21 turnovers. Suns had 19. Like Blazers won a game. The Blazers scored 92 points and won a game by 15 in 2026 in the NBA. I don't think any of these games are particularly instructive, right? Because one of them happened back in freaking November, and the other two, you're not getting enough of. You're either it's like not a whole Blazers roster or just like not even close to a whole Suns roster. But I do think these teams are relatively similar. Suns won 45 games this year. They're one of the big surprises in the league. I think Jordan Ott was like kind of like hey, did he just go to the right college so Matt Ishbia hired him? And instead he's like, they're a pretty good team. They're 9th in defense. They're 16th in offense, according to Cleaning the Glass, is 15th best net rating in the league. A lot of their indicators are a lot like the Blazers. They're 3rd in the league in forcing turnovers. Blazers are 7th. They're 6th in the league in offensive rebounds. Blazers are 4th. They're both bad defensive rebounding teams that crush the offensive glass and then get beat the other way on the offensive glass. I'd say teams that miss shots are going to have an advantage in this one because they're both going to go get rebounds. Obviously, you want to make shots, but I'd say both of these teams jack up a bunch of threes. The Suns are 5th in 3-point attempts. The Blazers are 3rd. The Suns are a much more accurate 3-point shooting team than the Blazers, but they also play the big difference. They play a lot slower. That's the big difference. I guess the Suns don't really get to the free throw line with the frequency, but that really just means Deni Avdija gets the free throw line a lot and Devin Booker does not because they play very different styles. But the Suns they're a half court team. They're 24th in pace. They're not going to fly around, but this is a team that has won all year with not particularly awesome offense and just this really solid defense that forces a bunch of turnovers. Dylan Brooks has been such a sort of just culture setter for them. When he's been available, they're really good. Their best lineup is with Mark Williams. Their best I'm talking just like most used lineups. Their best it was like a true center with Mark Williams in the middle, and he has somehow held up on and been part of a good defensive team despite I believe him being a pretty bad defensive player. But at some point, you are what you do, and so respect. But my eyeballs suggest that he's still a bad defensive player. But in any case, that's kind of been their move. But the Suns, they particularly in the second unit, you're probably not going to see much Malawatch. You're going to see them go small. That's rookie lottery pick, Common Malawatch. It'd be Oso Ighodaro. The Suns can go small, and I think that's if there is a place that the Blazers have an advantage, it's that they don't really go small. So even if the Suns do go small and the Blazers are sort of maybe Donovan Clingan gets played off the court to some extent because of the way the Suns play. First of all, I think he can guard Ighodaro because Oso doesn't take outside shots. He just takes crazy push shot floaters from the middle of the key and makes a lot of them. But if he does, the Blazers can go with Rob Williams, who's been really good, and still maintain some of their size advantage, even without the best offensive rebounder in the league and Donovan Clingan on the court. So, tomorrow on the show, Ben Garcia, the host of Locked On Suns, is going to join the program, and we will talk all about this matchup in depth, and we'll get some sort of view from Phoenix as well. But I think in general, I view this game as a coin flip. I haven't looked at the early betting lines, and I may or may not do that by the time I record tomorrow. But my personal view is that I think this is a coin flip. I don't think any of the matchups are particularly instructive in terms of this dude always dominates. Here's the guy you really need to watch out. I think in general, because the Suns are a good defensive team and because they do have shooting, both these teams are going to thrive off forcing turnovers and crushing the offensive glass. This is going to be a possession game, right? The Blazers want to play a little bit faster, so perhaps being able to enforce your will, but it can be hard to speed up a team team that is comfortable playing slow in the half court. Like you can run as much as you want, but they are going to play their way. The way you get them out of that is to force turnovers and force them, if they're trailing, to kind of get them in a place they don't want to be. But it's hard to speed up a team, right? It's hard to speed up a team, and they play with maybe not a ton of ball handlers, but they can put like many guards on the floor. They can put a smaller, like sort of like perimeter oriented all guard unit on the floor. They got a bunch of little guys who can guard. Jordan Goodwin can really guard, and he's a point guard size. I think Colin Gillespie is actually a pretty good defender for even for being like a smaller guard. Obviously Dylan Brooks can get after it with that Oso lineup. They can switch. I think this is like a toss-up, right? I think this is like a 50-50 coin flip. And if at the beginning of the year I told you the Blazers are going to be in a coin flip with the Phoenix Suns to finish 7th in the West, I bet you would take it because like they're you earn the right to be here, right? You play the games to earn the right to be here. The NBA season is incredibly long, and 82 games later, they've earned the right to be here. Tuesday night, they'll face the Suns. Winner takes 7th. Loser continue on and get a home game to finish 8th. That is what's at stake. Those are the stakes. And tomorrow's show, we'll get even deeper into a breakdown with Ben Garcia of Locked On Suns, as I said. So come back for that one. That's what we do 5 days a week, wherever you get podcasts, also on YouTube. Tell your friends about the show. I appreciate you listening. I will talk to you soon.